Ladies and gentlemen, I am Yuzrul. It is the 30th of April and this is the Tribble Timewarp. Cryptic have deployed a new patch to the server and it's a biggie, updated every texture in the game everywhere. Unfortunately, this has had the side effect of zonking the patch server. I managed to get about 2 gigs worth of the patch done before it froze up, and a couple of restarts of the client did get me a little further on, but as you can see it's currently, dead, to put it mildly. Cryptic, please take note of this, by the way. You are going to have to roll this patch out to everybody in 3 weeks, give or take. And even with the Tribble population, which tends to be much, much lower, and probably still is, given that not everybody in the game has access to the Romulans at the moment, your patch infrastructure still seems unable to cope. Now, I have no idea what kind of contingency plans you've got in place for this, but if you haven't, you seriously need to get some in place, because you do not need your launch somewhat derailed, to put it nicely, by the fact that nobody can get in because your patch servers have been blitzkrieged into oblivion. Anyhow, on to the topic. So, as we said, all the textures in the game have been updated. Hopefully it will look much prettier. As and when I can get into the game, we will take a look. Alright, so what do we have? Resolve an issue with shooter controls where right-clicking on a power used Alt-Fire instead. Woohoo, that sounds like a key binding on mouse 2. Fix some clipping issues on the various costumes. Drazana Station now has a tailor. Excellent. Although I'm not sure I'd entirely trust a Ferengi to handle my clothing if I was female. And the Klingons have a new shuttle, the Kivra class. The Tauron is now a dilithium ship, so we'll have to take a look at that. Given how small the Tauron is, I have to wonder what the Kivra's like. Let's face it, they've probably just given us a modified Class 8 astrometric probe. Alright, Klingon space energy weapons now have beam and cannon tabs. Well, if nothing else, that will make sorting them easier. The Klingon ship store has some more ships. Woohoo! We'll have to take a look to see whether that is actually new vessels or whether or not it's simply a case of, oh whoops, we forgot to put them in on Tribble. Sorry guys, here you go. Reputation fleet projects are down to 30 seconds. That is a temporary hack to make sure that Tribble fleets can actually get through this in a reasonable length of time. Bear in mind we only have 2.5 weeks really to get any remaining testing done, and the test vendor now has a limited selection of Nukara rep items. Good. I was wondering how long it was going to take me to grind that up. Okay, alright, so some new foundry maps, various mission fixes. Interesting, the Romulans have a contact to get them going on the Cloaked Intention series. I'm not clear if that's a bypass or if that's intended. I assume it's intended, and they've tweaked a few bits and pieces for some of the missions just to make travel time a little more reasonable. Alright, what else do we have? Price of Neutrality has been tweaked, so it's now level 10. Good, that makes sense. It was always meant to be. I think I actually pointed that out a couple of videos back. I think it was level 14 originally, and that made no sense at all. I haven't played most of those, so yeah, we shall see. Interesting point here, Tova and Kev has specific dialogue in Smash and Grab. Now that raises an interesting question about whether or not you're going to have to bring Tovan along on that mission. We shall find out, no doubt. Radiant Plasma Torpedo. Oh, so that's our Harpeng mission now. Right, well, if you were wondering what the Radiant Plasma Torpedo was, you can carry on wondering. I dare say it's going to wind up buried in the Tal Shiar archives. Right, good. That has been a major bug for me. Okay, so hopefully we can actually get that plotline going in the next video. Alright, what else do we have? Romulans able to queue for SEFs. Woohoo. Own contacts for dilithium stores and I'll have to share with the Federation. Again, woohoo. Bridge officers now have more appropriate uniforms. Okay, fair enough. I suppose by the time you start getting bridge officers, you're dealing with Romulan republics, so yay. Romulans will now get voice congratulations. Now, this may or may not be correct, because what I think is happening is that it is going to be Sela voicing the congratulations. Again, we'll have to get into the game to find out, but that strikes me as a paradox. Sella regards us as traitorous rebel scum. So why on earth would she be popping up and saying, "Hi, congratulations, you're all going to die, you traitors." Right, Romulans should use Romulan transporter X. Woohoo. Good. I wonder if that means they fix the warp effects as well. We shall have to see. Full array of duty officer contacts once you have the duty officer system going. And the promotion missions are now completing properly. Yay. Let's see what else. They have tweaked the base powerful warbird, so it's only a -5 penalty relative to Federation Klingon ships rather than -10. Bear in mind that is compensating for the scaling power bonus you get from Singularity cores. So with a fully charged Singularity, you should be getting 52.5. Of course, if you blow a power, you lose that, so hey, that's your decision. Alright, they've also tweaked some of the bonuses, so 45, 45, 45, 50. Okay, I have to note that is a paradox, because if they're on 45 base and the Talis is now 5 to all, that should be 50, 50, 50, 50, not 45, 45, 45, 50. Again, get into game, see what it's doing. The Tavaro now has +5 to all 3 and +10. Okay, that is an interesting boost. In fact, yeah, so that should be giving it 50, 50, 50, 55. Okay, again, we'll just have to see. The Dodex has a +10 and +5. Well, fair enough. Although it's tempting to note that you might actually make the Dodex a bit more strong on its shields. Maybe go for +10 shields rather than +10 weapons, given that it's meant to be the heavy cruiser analogue of the bunch. Alright, this replaces it. You can now pull marks of piercing Tetrion dual cannons. Woohoo, that was a bit of an aside. Right, Creative has had a buff and a nerf. The healing bonus is down 5% or 33%, depending on how you measure it across the board. Well, 33%, 25%, 20%. Yes, I'm being pedantic. But you now get a bonus to damage. It's no longer a purely healing option. So, hey, that makes it a considerably nicer tool for the balanced science player. Right, Cryo Grenade no longer benefits from situation as good, because Cryo Grenades weren't on the grenade cooldown as far as I am aware. There was a certain amount of exploit and expose spam going on with those. Efficient's been up, oh wow, from 15 to 30. Okay, that's a very definite boost. Interestingly, that could be good, because of course we have the liberated Borg on the Romulan side now, so that we will come back to in a few minutes. Draw of fire no longer expires too quickly, yay. Good, because it shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. Hyponic radiation situation now appears in the tooltip, excellent. Nukara rep, okay, so the Tetrion Cascade, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Nukara, that is the maximum level ability. It's essentially a point-blank AoE that then chains to nearby targets. So the jumps are now a little more reliable, and more to the point, the effects are displaying properly. Okay, auxiliary power configuration of fence, good. Most of this is just tweaks. Nukara impulse engines are now shield power rather than efficiency bonus, so basically you get your bonus regardless of whether or not you're running high shield power. Makes them considerably more valuable to cruiser and tanking style captains. And shield hardening barrier, well, we'll have to hope that I can get hold of one of those shields at DS9 and see what it does. Okay, tachyokinetic's been brought into line with RCS consoles again, although they haven't changed the tooltip because the maths is now... reality is now closer to the tooltip. Yay. Bridge officers are no longer incompetent when you hand them the new weapons, which is always good. And impulse thrusters has had a slight boost. Again, slower ships will see a larger bonus. I have to wonder if this is partially an attempt to bring these 5 and 6 DPS ships like the Doderedex, the Galaxy, and the Volkuv into being a little more responsive as opposed to having to start your turn in the previous instance. Right, Singularity has had its decay rate doubled. It's now 1% per second rather than 0.5% per second. So 100 seconds to go from full charge to 0, and presumably 20 seconds per level. Quantum Absorption now keeps track of the hit points separately in the UI, which is always handy. Damage goes to shields first, then temporary hit points, then your hull, which makes a little more sense, rather than having a magic hull that was outside your ship shields. Although I suppose you could argue that the absorption effect was outside the shields. Who cares? Cryptic have clearly changed their minds. Alright, isometric charge and overloader back to 120 fire arcs, graviton pulse and energy dissipator back to 90 arcs. Those were 135 degree arcs in the last patch, along with quite a few other science and general technobabble abilities, so clearly those were considered to be a little too easy to use for their power. Let me see. Right, Romulan rep consoles now increase all plasma damage, so they're now dual purpose for torpedoes and beam weapons, or other energy weapons. Cannons also get a look in. Right, what else do we have? Some Captain rank Reman NPCs have had a nerf, so presumably the Mind Rape is now going to be a little less common. And matter antimatter cores now have an efficiency bonus, so that is going to be an edge over Quantum Singularity cores. It's going to be interesting to see how that stacks, because of course Singularity cores give a higher percentage, or rather a higher base power when they're fully charged. So I have to wonder if this isn't just going to give Federation and Klingon players a flat advantage in their power levels. But we shall see. Skill bonus is now scale. Previous skill bonus was Mark 10, so presumably Mark 11 and Mark 12. We'll go through. Right, the power transfer option is now for matter and antimatter cores. Previously, I'd only seen that on Singularity cores, but I may not have been paying attention enough. Alright, long descriptions are in place. Singularity cores on the Squadfire and the Kestrel Runabout. Please do not get confused. The fact that it is called Runabout, I believe that is the Romulan heavy shuttle and not a Federation one. And adjusted all types of Romulan cloaking to be distinct from standard cloaking. Romulan cloaking now has a higher stealth value, but your Singularity power will make your ship easier to detect. Okay, we'll have to look at the numbers on that, because while it's mostly going to be a PvP thing, apparently it looks as though running up a high Singularity charge and then cloaking isn't going to work nearly so well for sneaking up and then clobbering somebody with the higher level Singularity powers like the weapon overload. So that could be interesting. Right, Romulan bridge officers have had their UI fixed. Tagline for KDF on character select. Again. I wonder if they've gone back to these are the victories of. Pity, I quite like the badass groups behind you pose, but we'll see what that looks like now. They now have large headshots in the duty officer dossier, and the standard rating no longer crashes the client. Yay! Right. Chairman comes back. Rapidly deleting mail will no longer nuke the client. Woohoo! Right, resistance percentages now display resistance ratings, and there are several more done, and your dodge chance is now displayed. Yay! Duty officer frames are now a little more clear, and so instead of the little shading and having to look at the species, you now have a definite icon indicating faction. It's in the upper right hand corner, so have to get used to that. And yes, you can now pay a little less attention and not find yourself sold a lemon. Throttle HUD element has made shorter. How much shorter, I have to wonder. Again, we'll have to get into the game. Alright, what else do we have? Okay, that's good. There were elements of this in the last patch with the Quantum Singularity window retaining its outline. Previous to that, of course, you just had the green boxes. But hopefully this will now be an easier adjustment to make. Contact dialog now has speech bubble appearances. Well, we'll have to see. Menu contacts now fixed width and move closer to the left edge of the screen. Maybe. Disabled text is now dark grey. Disabled button slightly light grey. Fair enough. yeah, the black text on black background wasn't exactly great. And yes, they have fixed the black text of the rewards. Woohoo. Right, request reinforcements button is now back. Although I don't think that's ever actually worked. Can't say I've ever used it. And you can now show only usable items on the exchange. Yes, it's only been 3 years since we've wanted that feature. And, well, fair enough. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Oh yes, and Seller really does need to just shoot the clothes makers. Or get some Borg technology into the cape, I don't know. Hey, what's the point of working for the Iconians if you can't get your tailors to work on time? Right, something else that's been put out is the Romulan subscriber rewards. Now, obviously you have the liberated Borg. Now, looking at this guy, I can't decide if the skin texture on his chest is meant to be Borg. I mean, there is some mottling to it, but the veins do seem to stop very noticeably at the neck, which just jumped out and grabbed me as odd. I don't know, maybe that's deliberate, maybe it's just an artifact from that particular costume piece. Who knows? Right, so what do you have if you are silver, gold, or indeed lifetime? Well, everyone gets access to the alien Romulan species. Well, hey, we'll have to see what they get. I suspect that may be the completely custom character, so all traits right from the start. Gold subscribers will be getting their veteranship token if you've got 600 days. Bear in mind that implies even if you are lapsed. So if you run up 600 days gold and you've then stopped your subscription, you will still get this veteran token. Hang on to it till Vice Admiral, guys. Just a thought. Alright, and also note it's only good for Romulan ships, so you can't use it to get a Federation or Klingon ship on the sly. Alright, lifetimers, we get the liberated Romulan Borg. I have to wonder if this is going to allow us to stack efficient and Romulan well, just liberated Romulan. You're also instantly granted 1,000-day veteran status. Well, we had that anyway, and yeah, we get the veteran ship. So, I have to note that does make, or at least potentially make, the legacy pack a little less attractive, but we shall see. Obviously, you also get all the usual features and benefits, etc. Veteran rewards are more or less what you would expect. Titles are the same. We get a veteran Romulan com badge. Please note the asterisk. If we scroll down there, Republic veteran will not be available at the launch, but is currently planned for development. Ditto the Romulan veteran uniform. And I believe there are a couple of others. Yes, the Romulan veteran starship and the material. These are still in the works. It looks like they may not be available at launch, or indeed may not even be ready at launch, which does raise an interesting little problem. I mean, even the title, Republic Veteran, is not going to be available. Okay, that does make me wonder about how much work Cryptic have set themselves. We have confirmation of the Romulan veteran starship. Assuming they stick to their usual pattern, that will be the counterpart to the Chimera and the Peku. Now, I have to wonder about this, because either they're cooking up something special, and therefore won't have it ready, or, despite the fact that the Romulan version is basically going to be a copy-paste of the Peku, with a Plasma Lotus rather than a Disruptor Lotus, and a Romulan Battle Cloak rather than a standard Klingon Battle Cloak, do they just not have the time at the moment to get this in? Well, I can't blame them, given that they've apparently redone every texture in the game, but it's always worth bearing in mind that Cryptic do not have Blizzard's resources, so relatively little of note there. They've also clarified the pre-order bonuses, so if you already had the various TR-116s, red matter capacitors, multi-spatial shields, etc, then you will have access to those as a Romulan. You'll get your liberated Borg bridge officer when you pick a side. Ditto your Type 8 shuttle pet. I assume that's going to be Federation only. Likewise, the Riviera Tribble and the old series Constitution class. I have to wonder why they're even bothering with that. I mean, it makes sense from a continuity point of view, but I also have to ask, why would you bother? I also have to ask, what self-respecting Romulan is going to be flying a TOS Constitution when we've got some perfectly good warbirds? Bah, some people will go Xeno at the first opportunity. Right. Now, the final thing I want to cover for this episode, and I realise it's mostly been text and me talking rather than actual action, is the Legacy Pack. A couple of people have asked me my opinions on these in comments. Okay, we've had some provisional numbers for the ships now, and the starter pack I am getting more favourable towards. So, just to go over it again, it's a pre-order, and you may regard pre-orders as being the work of the devil on general principles, but leaving those people aside, we have got the Tavaro retrofit and its T1 equivalent, the standard Tavaro. Liberated Borg Reman officer and Survivor Romulus. So you can potentially get 2 liberated Borg officers if you're a lifetimer who goes for this. I feel obliged to note at this point that you're starting your own mini collective, particularly if you decide to play a liberated Borg yourself and then get the Borg set and leave the effects on. Yeah, that de-assimilation process did work, didn't it? Anyhow. Right, the Tavaro is a Tier 5 Rear Admiral ship. Now, okay, what does that give you? Well, basically that's going to be $20 at least straight off. So you're essentially getting the Tier 1, the title, and the Bridge Officer free of charge for what is basically going to be our equivalent of the Escort if the present numbers hold. So if you're umming and ahhing, but you know you're going to be flying a Escort-style ship, and you know you're going to be putting in a good chunk of Romulan time, then the starter pack is a fairly safe bet. The Legacy pack is the one I'm still uncertain about. Now, it includes everything in the starter pack. Cryptic are being very, very coy about whether or not they are going to give you a discount on the Legacy pack if you first buy the starter pack. That is making me think that the answer is going to be no. Because, let's face it, if it was, they would be able to get themselves some cash by saying, yes, we're going to allow you to get your $19.99 off the Legacy pack, so get this for $105 on the upgrade. Then, of course, everyone rushes out and buys the starter pack if they're planning to go seriously Romulan, and you later find yourself trying to upsell at a, well, later date. So, you get the Tavaro Light, and I believe, yes, you get the Tavaro Retrofit as well. You also get the other progression ships. Now, this is where I start umming and ahhing, because once you hit the level cap, once you hit Vice Admiral, you are basically going to find that 1, 2, 3, 4 of the ships you've bought are subpar, for want of a better term. You then have yourself dealing with the Tavaro retrofit from Rear Admiral to Vice Admiral, the Delun likewise, and then you've got the Morgai and the Dederidex at Vice Admiral. Yeah. Like, you also get the option to play as Reman. Remember that if what I am reading is correct, and if I've interpreted it correctly, this is the same Reman option you will have if you capped out your Romulan rep on a Federation or Klingon character, so that could be of dubious value. The Borg Reman Bridge Officer is the same one you get in the starter pack. Duty Officer mini pack we have no details on. We don't know how many we're getting, we don't know what traits we're getting, we don't know how ludicrously overpowered or not they're going to be. 30 Master Keys. Well, in truth, if you're willing to take $30 off that, yeah. Survivor Romulus you get. Romulan Nemesis uniform, well, hey, bling bling, bling bling. Riantsu title, I'll admit the lore nerd in me is going woohoo, 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 but then again, I am a fan of Diane Duane's books. Incidentally, if you haven't read The Bloodwing Chronicles and The Empty Chair, go get out there, find them, read them. They have a lot of the expanded background on the Romulans, or the Riantsu to give them their proper term. I have to note that Cryptic have always included hints that they were going to be drawing from that background at least. So if you want some reading, then that's worth doing. If you want some research, it's worth doing. And hey, they're actually damned good novels anyway. So if you just want a good read, go out and buy those books. Alright, back onto topic. So, 125 bucks. So, 12,500 Zen. All things given and taken. Now, the Mogai and the Derdere decks are probably going to be 2,500 each once it releases. The Dallin and the Tavaro Retrofit, 2,000 each. The Dredthal, 1,500. The Valdor, 1,000. Am I doing my numbers wrong? Because that progression suddenly doesn't seem right. Yeah. What I think I would say on this is that if you know what class of ship you're going to field, and you've made your mind up on that, then the Legacy pack probably isn't worth it, because you can basically level up on the standard ships and then pick up your retrofit at maximum level for the standard Zen price, assuming Cryptic don't pull something weird on us. And you'll be paying about 25 to 30 bucks, give or take, as opposed to 125. If you're not sure, or if you're just an absolute diehard, then it's pretty good value from a sheer percentage standpoint. Let's face it, as Cryptic are pointing out very prominently, this is 181 bucks standard. So you're saving about a third of the price. Again, I come back to this 30 master keys. Take 30 bucks off this, 151 value for 90. Actually, you know what? That might actually have worked better. Drop the master keys. Cut the price here to $99.99 or $94.99, depending on how you're going. Value to 151. I have to wonder if that wouldn't have sold better. But anyway, that's just me. And the fact that I don't much care for the lockbox system. So that's my personal prejudices go through. Interestingly, we also have an answer to the question about the liberated Borg. Because, hey, we have this chap with his nice, healthy, relatively tan complexion. And give me a separate window so we can make the comparison. And this chap who clearly isn't, and really needs a good optician. And possibly a dermatologist. I wonder if we can get him an emollient cream. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it there for a moment. Don't imagine the patch has got any further on. No, it hasn't. Alright, I have been Uteral. That has been the Tribble Timewarp, admittedly the desktop edition. And I'll see you at the next episode when hopefully I'll have a working client. Farewell.